Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you this special bulletin. The news is out. Rejoice, rejoice. There is no DEI agenda trying to be pushed throughout the video game industry. That's nonsense and conspiracy theories. Who on earth would think such thing would be true? At least that's according to Tales of the Shire. Lead producer calls DEI agenda throughout the video game industry a conspiracy. I'll have a link to the Fandom Pulse over here in the comments section. Screw it, we're going with it. Calliope Ryder, the lead producer of Tales of the Shire Lord of the Rings game, claims that the DEI agenda that has taken over numerous video games that cannot be denied at this point. When you have talentless writers and developers, well, maybe not so much the developers. I'll say this about Dragon Age the Veilguard. The game ran very smoothly. It was everything else that was attached to it that was garbage. It's a conspiracy. Rest assured, folks, it's not happening. We're all fools. Uncovered by YouTuber Vera Dark, Ryder posted back in 2024 to X, quote, "I promise I've never received a message from a higher-up that said needs more diversity so we can get government funding." Now, this statement is twofold. Obviously, there's one side that we know the people that if this is happening, the people that are putting forth those memos, those marching orders, they're not going to come out and say outright that that's what they're getting. But did you ever think that perhaps maybe Calliope over here gets a different kind of marching order? And honestly, and the other side is, well, she's telling the truth, which makes it actually even more worse because she's pushing nonsense into games. That means these developers who aren't doing it because they're being ordered to, which some have speculated, they're doing it because they want to. This is what they think is good for the gaming industry. Nonsensical ideology, checkbox, diversity in games where it just doesn't seem to fit. That's worse than marching orders. She added, "It's just that games are made by and for a wide range of people with varying experiences." Well, the unfortunate part is the people you're attempting to make these games for, the so-called modern audience, don't exist. You're catering to a demographic that just isn't there. There's no scary cabal forcing devs to add women and POCs. Oh, it always comes down to that. That's what we're against, ladies and gentlemen. That's what gamers are against. We're against them adding women and people of color to video games when, well, that is so far from the case, it's not even funny. We don't care if you add women. We don't care if you add black people, Asians, Mexicans, Spanish, Italians. We don't care. We want it to be fun, and we want it to make enough sense. I guess I have to say that now. We want it to make enough sense so that it is believable. If you don't remember my favorite word, verisimilitude. The world you are presenting, the story, the characters, is believable in the universe that you are presenting. If you present a game in, 1400s Bohemia, that was a rather particular demographic, and suddenly you add someone who doesn't seem to belong to that demographic, you better have a good reason. On the previous video, I was under the understanding that Musa was he was in a caravan, but that's not the case. He was part of an invading army. Now, is that possible? Sure. Probable? Maybe. Arguments can be made one way or another, but do the best you can to make it make sense. If all of a sudden an entire village of African individuals popped up in 1400 Bohemia, then that would be a major problem because it wouldn't make sense even with the farthest of reaches, even with a 10 out of 10 mental gymnastics, that wouldn't make sense. Everybody understand where I'm going? Cool. Awesome. Thank you for making it this far. Ryder followed that up by writing, "Like reading these conspiracies online about how this industry works is wild. Here's the thing. If it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, well, it must be a duck, right? Because over and over again, we're getting games with one checkbox after another checkbox after another checkbox in a game where those checkboxes don't make sense. So the developers put them in there for a reason. And when, well, the internet autists like Madam Savvy start doing their digging and they find the little connections here and there, and everywhere, people come to conclusions. And so far, nothing's really come out to put those conclusions to rest, to make them, well, false, for lack of a better term. There's no evil corp, the words. Evil corp working on erasing white men from games. Again, people make assumptions based on what the product looks like. And they're frustrated when one game after another comes out with a person of color, a female person of color, or whatever as the main protagonist. Kind of look at it a little funny, no big deal, honestly, because some of my favorite games, Metroid for one, which is a favorite of quite a few gamers out there. I believe Perfect Dark, is it? As a female protagonist, I believe that was rather popular. We have numerous games with female protagonists, with black protagonists, and so on et al. That people don't have a problem with. But when these modern games come out and they're trash, well, again, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, moving on. They're busy figuring out how to make you and every other gamer spend more money on microtransactions. Well, I mean, we already know that's true. Next, she wrote, adding, let's see. I don't think these people understand that there's a very broad market of gamers. Okay, so if you're catering to a small niche section of gamers, then what are you worried about the criticism and backlash? Let your game speak for yourself. I've said this numerous times, and I'll criticize everyone for it. Every producer out there, every developer out there. When you come out and make statements like this, when you are trying to sell a product, just don't. Making statements like this, you're painting a broad brush on all the criticism coming out about your game, and it is a dangerous, act to paint such a broad brush. Because people that you're not actually talking to, people that you're not lumping in with your statement, will feel like you are talking to them because they're criticizing your game with legitimate reasons. Representation does matter to many players, yes, but it needs to be organic. What is so difficult about that idea? Just make it organic. Again, well, make it fun first, fuckers. In some games, much more than others. Why? Give us a reason. Give us a good reason why that representation is just, so important in some games more than others. But you can't. It's only important to you, not necessarily the people you're trying to sell your game to. Games are designed by the community that made them, but also by the market that will buy them. If that were the case, half the games coming out, well, lately, would not look the way they do. Because, well, just think about it for a little bit. The primary demographic for buying video games. It is not the modern audience. As noted by Dark, the Norwegian Film Institute and European Union provided funds for Dustborn. Oh, that was so great. That abomination of a video game was so ridiculously politically driven. It's not even funny. There's no denying the undertones because, well, they weren't really undertones. They were overtones, overdone overtones over and over again. Lo and behold, the Norwegian Film Institute announced it had a 5-year diversity plan back in 2019. Well, would you look at that? Gender balance and broader representation are the utmost importance from a democracy and freedom of speech. Jesus, just make a fun game. All this extra nonsense about gender and representation and inclusivity, POC this, POS that. Just make the game fun. Figure out an interesting, logical way to get your little checkboxes in there. It's not, I said it again, I said it before, I'll say it again, and I'll say it right before I end this video. You would be very surprised at what gamers will tolerate if it's fun. If it makes sense. Part of it being fun is the world makes sense. The checkbox makes sense. The diversity, the representation, all that stuff. If it makes sense in the world that you have put forth. When it doesn't make sense, that means you did a terrible job with your writing and your development. So whose fault is it? Is the gamers that are sick and tired of this nonsense being shoved down their throat? Or is it you, the developer, that has failed over and over again to read the room? But that's all I'm going to talk about on this one. Link in the description box down below to Fandom Pulse. You choose whether or not you want to go check out their article. But leave a like, leave a dislike, do all those nifty little things YouTubers beg you to do, and I hope to see you on the next one.